Okay, here we go. Did America fake the moon landings? Here we go again. All right. The official story is that the United States successfully landed 12 men on the moon and returned them safely to Earth. So 12 men between 1969 and 1972 walked the moon. Now, I was alive in 1969. I was very young, but I do remember watching the first moon landing on my grandfather's black and white television in his living room. 1970 rolls around. My dad actually gives me this book, Americans to the Moon. And, all the pictures that you've seen, they're in here. I ate it up. Star Wars, Star Trek, model rockets. I ate up space. So then you start hearing about, well, America faked the moon landing and stuff. And you're like, okay, well, you know what? I wasn't really there. So what do you have to say? So one side will say, hey, these photographs, right, they don't have any stars. You can see the sky there, but there's no stars. Where's the stars? The other side says, well, yeah, that's because the photographs were taken in the daytime, and so the sun's washing out the stars just like they do on Earth during the daytime. You can't see the stars in the daytime, but they're still there. One side says, yeah, but look, when he plants the flag moves back and forth after he takes his hand away. That shows that there's wind there moving the flag. The other side says, well, no, the flag is moving due to a buildup of internal momentum, and then the flag slowly goes back and forth until the internal friction stops it from moving, and it stops. So one side says, yeah, but when you're flying through the Van Allen belts, the radiation is so high it'll kill you. And the other side says, well, yeah, but you fly through so fast, you're through them in about 90 seconds. That's equivalent of like 2 chest x-rays. So you have these back and forths that happen. It's each of them sounds like a valid argument, and each of them sounds like they could counter the others. But I want to present this from a different perspective. So I want to talk about this from a political perspective. So why did the United States send $20 billion and tens of thousands of people to put men on the moon to never return after 1972? Was it just to show that we could do it? Well, yeah, actually, yes. So after the World War II, from 1945 on until really the fall of the Soviet Union, the world really did not know which was the better system of government for humanity. Was capitalism better or was communism better? So let's talk about some firsts. So, contrary to all of the, Russian stuff is crap, they were actually really, really advanced. So in 1957, the Russians or the Soviets had a first, and that was the first artificial satellite in space. And it was only a radio transmitter, but regardless, they had the first artificial satellite in space. Soon after, they had the first biologic in space. That was a stray dog from Moscow by the name of Leica. And unfortunately, within a couple hours of the launch, she was dead. Very sad story. Interestingly, one of the dogs soon after Leica that was successfully returned, she had puppies. And Nikita Khrushchev, the Soviet premier, he actually presented one of those puppies to Jacqueline and John Kennedy in 1960. But let's go back to Russian firsts. So 1961, we had the first man in space and orbit of the Earth. That was Yuri Gagarin. We had a couple years later, in 1963, Valentina Tereshkova. She was the first woman in space. She was actually in space for 3 days because the Russians were also beating us in heavy lift capability, and they had the ability to lift the supplies to allow her to stay in orbit for so long, which we couldn't do that. So far, it's a Russian first for everything. Let's go back a little bit. Let's talk about Luna 1. 1959, that was the first flyby of the moon. Soon after was Luna 3, were the first pictures of the far side of the moon. Let's see, 1965 rolls around. We have Alexei Leonov. He becomes the first successful spacewalk. Let's see, soon after that, 1966, we have Luna 15, which is the first soft landing on the moon. So up until this point, the Soviets were kicking our butts. So now we come to the first Apollo 11, the first moon landing with Neil Armstrong, right? And okay, so I guess what? We faked it. So here's the thing: the Russians were trying to get, the Soviets were trying to get to the moon first, and so far they have been ahead of everything. They were monitoring the launch. They were monitoring the in-flight telemetry. They were monitoring the landing. They monitored the in-flight telemetry on the way back. They monitored the entire trip. If we had faked it from a studio in Burbank, they would have, unless you think that the Soviets were in on the grand conspiracy, they would have basically let the world know that it was faked and they would have been to the moon first. So from that perspective alone, I believe that the official narrative is correct and the United States did land men on the moon and return them to Earth. So if there's a conspiracy anywhere, it's did the United States let the Russians have so many firsts? Because within weeks of each of their firsts, just about, we did our own equivalent. So why would we do this? To build up fear in the American public, to get the funding that we needed to go as fast as we needed to get us to the moon. So if there's a conspiracy to talk about, it could be the conspiracy to let the Soviets get there to put fear into the American public's mind. So anyways, from my perspective, from that perspective alone, we did go to the moon and we did return those people to Earth. So anyways, I hope that maybe sparks another way to look at it if you happen to be on the side that thinks we did not go to the moon. So let me know what you think. Like, subscribe. And if I'm full of it, tell me. And if you agree with me, tell me. It's fine. For all I know, we didn't go because I wasn't there. But from the evidence that I've seen, I am concluding that we did. So anyways, I'll talk to you later.